If you aren't paying attention to this book prize, then you are missing out. It is the first year the Republic of Consciousness Prize is being awarded to American and Canadian publishers, and I have the whole long list here to share with you. The short list has already been announced, but I have avoided looking at it so far so that I could come here and talk about the long list again, share my predictions for the short list based on the books that I love the most, and then I'm going to ask my husband to come and read the short list to me so I can react live on camera to the official first inaugural Republic of Consciousness Prize, US and Canada short list. Did I say short list? But first, what is this prize even about and who the heck am I? I'm Sarah, and I love to read books from independent publishers and then come here on YouTube to talk about them. And the Republic of Consciousness Prize is right up my alley because it is dedicated to small presses. In order to qualify, a publisher must publish 18 or fewer books per year. And to put that in perspective, Penguin Random House claims on their website that they publish 15,000 print books a year. So the Republic of Consciousness Prize is focused on our much smaller and wonderful small presses. It started a few years ago in the UK, and this is the first year that the prize is being awarded also to US and Canadian publishers. The prize focuses on fiction, so the publishers need to primarily, if not exclusively, focus on fiction in the work that they publish, and then the books that they submit to the prize judges must be works of fiction as well. On March 1st, I attended a wonderful virtual event with all of the publishers and most of the authors and translators and editors of all of these 10 amazing books, and it was so special to see all of these amazing people and how enthusiastic they were and gracious with their time, and everyone gave a little reading and then answered a couple of questions from the prize judges, and it was really special. I have officially read 8 out of the 10 longlisted books. I have run out of time to read all 10 of them. I want to talk about each of them here with you today. So first up is a book called Pollak's Arm. It's by Hans van Trotha, and it's translated by Elizabeth Laufer. This is the story of a Jewish antiquities dealer named Ludwig Pollak, and he lived in Rome with his family during World War II, and Pollak was the most well known for finding the missing, broken off arm of a very famous ancient Greek sculpture called the Laocoon. Don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but it's a very famous sculpture that currently is in the Vatican. And Pollak was just out shopping one day and he saw a piece of an arm from a sculpture, and he, based on his expertise in antiquity, recognized it as the arm from this ancient Greek sculpture, and he was right. He bought the arm and he gave it to the Vatican, and so that is what he is most well known for. He and his family lived in Rome, like I said, during World War II, and based on historical records, we know that the Vatican, at one point, they sent an emissary, they sent a messenger from the Vatican to Pollak and his family to let them know that the next day the Nazis were going to be rounding up all of the Jewish population in Rome. They had a list of about 2,000 names. And so the Vatican sent this messenger to Pollak's home to warn him and to offer him and his family safe refuge within the walls of the Vatican. And so we know that a messenger was sent. We know that Pollak and his family did not go to the Vatican. And we know that the next day they were in fact taken to a train and sent to Auschwitz, where all record of them ends there. What this novel is it's narrated by this messenger sent from the Vatican, who's only given an initial K, and it's K telling someone back at the Vatican, Monsignor F. He's telling Monsignor F the story of what happened when he went to, and this is the fictionalized part, the story of what happened when he went to Pollak's home to try and convince him to come to the Vatican. And what happened was Kay desperately tried to get Pollak to agree to come to the Vatican, but all Pollak wanted to do was tell his life story and talk about art and history and antiquity. So that's what this novel is. It's Pollak's life story told through the voice of K as he's speaking to Monsignor F. This novel is so brilliant. There are so many layers of narration. We have K as the narrator talking to Monsignor F, and he just constantly is saying things like, Pollak was acting as if I wasn't even in the room. He was just talking like there was no one there, and he wasn't even talking to anyone. It's just so brilliant because, in fact, Kay wasn't in the room. Like in real life, he was not there. This author was not there, did not actually hear Pollak's life story from the lips of Pollak himself. So you can't ever forget that we do not have Pollak's story from his own mouth. For me, that was the whole narrative style, was so you can't ever forget that we don't actually have Pollak's amazing life story from his own lips, because he was taken and his whole family was murdered. It's just so powerful. I think if you pick this book up, you have to be okay with a bit of info dump, because that is kind of what, like, the nature of like what it's all about is Pollak is just kind of dumping all of his knowledge about art at Kay, and so it really is just like kind of this big info dump at times, but it fits the novel itself, and it's so stunningly beautiful. I highly recommend this novel. Then we have New Animal by Ella Baxter, and this was published by $2 Radio. And this is the story of Amelia Aurelia, whose family owns a funeral home in Australia. And Amelia herself is the cosmetic mortician, so she applies the makeup on the deceased before a funeral. And very early in the novel, Amelia's own mother passes away, and so suddenly she is dealing with all of this grief that she's been surrounded with her whole life, because it's her family's like field, it's their job, it's their life, but now it's so much more, significantly more personal, because it's her own mother's death, and she completely loses her grip on her life, and she ends up going to live with her dad and encounters, kind of by chance, the local BDSM community, and she makes all sorts of mistakes and errors and gaffes within that community. Such a touching and open-hearted and lovely story. I really, really loved the depiction of this job that is so so unexplored within our own culture and society. Like, it's just Amelia's approach to death is, she sees so much beauty, and I adore $2 Radio as a publisher, so I was so excited to see this on the list. Then we have Get 'em Young, Treat 'em Tough, Tell 'em Nothing by Robin McLean, and this is published by And Other Stories. In my bookstore, I happened upon a signed copy of this amazing short story collection. Some of the blurbs describe this as stories from the eternal battlefront that is the United States. Some of the situations you find yourself in these stories is with a couple who is living on a farm and are presumably trying to poison their landlord so they can inherit the farm from him. Also, there's a story about a man who's fallen from a cliff and is stuck between a tree and the rock face, and is trying to get the attention of anybody down below to try and save him from his predicament. That one is called Cliff Ordeal, which I thought was an amazing title. There's also a story of a military sentry who commits a minor infraction and is punished with kind of continuous, never-ending guard duty, and it even extends into the rest of the military base evacuating, and he has to stay there through the evacuation. There's a review in The Guardian that says that you need to be okay with the unpredictable if you're gonna read these stories, and I couldn't agree more. They all start out pretty realistic, if offbeat situations, but then strange details start to accumulate and get stranger and stranger and stranger and stranger until pretty much every story ends in what feels a lot like a nightmare. Things don't necessarily make sense, take very dark turns, and don't generally end well. The Guardian also describes this as like a form of American expressionism, where it doesn't portray like real people in real situations that you would find in real life, but it does portray these bizarre situations that get at a very real feeling of dread and anxiety that I think is in the pit of a lot of our stomachs. Like my frequent expressions as I was reading this were, wait, what just happened? What actually just happened? And when I think about it, like that is kind of what life has been like for the past, several years. Like you wake up one morning and you're like, wait, what just happened? We also have God's Children Are Little Broken Things by Arinze Ifekandu, and this is published by A Public Space Books. And these are described as 9 exhilarating stories of queer love in contemporary Nigeria. These are the kind of stories where you, or at least I, became immediately attached to the characters. When you hear people say like, I don't really like short stories, I think that it's like a character connection thing, maybe. Like it's maybe from folks who are love novels because of the intense connection that you can feel with the characters, and they're like really character driven. That is what these short stories are like. Like you could, I kind of hate saying this, but like I would read a novel about any of these characters in any of these short stories. So for example, we have a story of a couple who are deeply in love, and two gay men they're deeply in love, but one of the couple is an aspiring musician and is like on the brink of really hitting it big, and they have to hide their relationship because it will ruin his career prospects if anyone finds out that he's gay. It is heartbreaking. It's a really beautiful story. One of my other favorite stories was about a young woman who returns to her father's home after he's passed away, and her father later in life shared with his family that he is gay, and so their mother moved out and his partner moved in with him, and so this young woman is returning to the home, and her father's partner is living there, and she's just really regretting the fact that she didn't have a chance to like heal her relationship with her dad while there was still time. She always thought she had more time. And so the rest of the family they want to kick the father's partner out of the home. They have completely rejected him. They want to kick him out. And so it's about this kind of like budding relationship between the young woman and the love of her father's life, and it's so beautiful. And during the event that I attended for the prize, the editor was there, and one of the prize judges commented on how most of the sentences and dialogue that occurs in language other than English, so like Igbo, for example, there is no explanation, there's no translation, nothing. And the editor was really firm on the fact that she didn't want the author to have to explain anything that wouldn't already be evident and clear to his Nigerian readers. And I thought that was fantastic. And the one I have finished most recently is Blood Red by Gabriela Ponce, and this is translated by Sarah Booker, and this is from Restless Books. And this book I had been delaying reading until the last minute because I knew that it would have lots of blood and lots of bodily fluids, and it also has been described as like stream of consciousness style, and I was afraid that it would be hard to read from many angles, including just comprehension. I heard stream of consciousness and I was like, okay, is this going to be kind of hard to follow? The prose is crystal clear. It reads so beautifully. This is up there with one of my favorites of the bunch. It is about a woman, I think she just turns 38 in this. So this, I should say that Gabriela Ponce is an Ecuadorian writer, and so the young woman, who I believe is unnamed, she is young woman. She's like my age. She is going through a divorce, and she's also having an affair with a man who lives in a cave. And she's just basically in a messy place in her life, messy in just so many ways. I love this. It was devastating at the end, especially as a mother. Absolutely devastating. Beautiful though. I mean, all of the like details about this character were just so perfectly chosen and wonderful. Like, she's addicted to falling in love, and all of her relationships are very messy and painful and difficult. And she grew up though watching soap operas, telenovelas with her grandmother. And so she says at one point that because she grew up watching these telenovelas, I'm going to read it. The quote is just so great. She says, "How can you love someone without the slap? There's no love without the slap." Because if you picture like soap opera, there's always everybody's always slapping everybody. Just that detail is so beautiful. And we have new and selected stories by Cristina Rivera Garza. And these are translated by a whole host of people. So translated by Sarah Booker, also translated Blood Red from Spanish. And additional translation by Lisa Dillman, Francisca Gonzalez Arias, Alex Ross, and the author herself. And the publisher is Dorothy, a publishing project. How to describe these stories? These stories are very difficult to describe. They're the kind of stories that you read and you're like really digging the vibe and you're getting really like vivid imagery, but you also have a certainty deep in your soul that this author is so much smarter than you will ever be. And there is so much that you are not picking up on. This is the kind of book that I had to like seek out other sources to be able to like fully understand what is going on. So there's this really wonderful piece, and recently, just from last year, in the New Yorker about Rivera Garza, and that piece describes the primary tension that appears in her fiction as between the unruly intensities of sexual desire and the political disciplining of the body. And then that review also mentions that the forms of her stories are very, very, very fractured in form, and also very fairy tale like settings, like lots of forests and like outskirts of cities. So yeah, there's a lot of sensuality and immediacy in the stories, but there's also these like really heavy overtones of like political oppression, like this low hum, not even a low hum, a high hum of conspiracy going on at all times. My favorite story in here, maybe my favorite story in here was called City of Men, and it is about, so a lot of these stories are like very like dystopian, or like some of them are post-apocalyptic, and so City of Men is about a city that is occupied only by men, and there's a female journalist from another place who is sent by her newspaper, her journal, to go write a piece about this city of men, because as her like editor or supervisor says, it would be so great to have a perspective, a female perspective. Like, you're the only one who can go do this because we need a woman's perspective on the city of men. So go write this story. When she gets there, not only is it super weird, but she's like warned early on that she needs to get out now or she's never leaving. And that in fact, there were other female journalists sent before her who never left. So it's a lot about gender roles. And I do know that a lot of her work is like about violence against women. There's lots of disappearances and investigations and like kind of this noir detective investigation-y interrogation feeling to a lot of them, but they also don't have like a standard like plot. It is fascinating. Then we have Family Album, a collection of short stories by Gabriela Alemán, and this is published by City Lights Books. And the translator, there's two translators, Dick Cluster and Mary Ellen Feiweger. This is another Ecuadorian writer. These are short stories that are structured in a really cool way. They are all titled after different events that you would see captured within a family photo album. So there's a story called Baptism, and a story called Summer Vacation, and a story called Marriage and Honeymoon. And I would say like the family here is Ecuador, because all these stories take place either they take place in Ecuador or they take place featuring people from Ecuador, but in other places around the world, like New York, Puerto Rico, maybe Mexico. So there's a story about a woman discovering the illicit, illegal activity of her husband after his death. There's a story of a diver in the Galapagos Islands who is kind of teaching a tourist, how to scuba dive. There's a story, also Galapagos Island story, a true story based on these like crazy European people who came to live on this uninhabited island in the Galapagos, and one of them was like a baroness, and they ended up like all murdering each other, and it's like based on a true story, but this is like a kind of an alternative theory of what that it was like in the, I think it was in the 1930s. So again, these stories are all about Ecuador, but they're also all about truth and different versions of truth, at least I thought, especially like what truths are published or what versions of truth are pushed by the media and by governments and by those in power, and then also what truths are kind of swept under the rug. So like when you think about a family album, that is a version of a family's life and existence. So you're only going to put in the family album certain events that show a certain perspective. There's always somebody in the family who knows like a different version of the truth, knows that maybe a deeper truth or a darker version of events. And if that person who knows the darker version of events doesn't get to tell their story, then that story is probably going to die with them. And that was a recurring theme throughout all of these stories, which is so cool. Then we have Moldy Strawberries by Caio Fernando Abreu, and this was translated by Bruna Dantas Lobato, and this is published by Archipelago Books. This originally was published in 1982, so the author passed away in the 90s from AIDS. And this is a new translation. And this is described as depicting Brazil in the 1980s and like evoking the AIDS crisis and the military dictatorship. But I think that description from the blurb is like slightly misleading because none of those things are actually overtly mentioned in any of these stories. And in fact, this was published in 1982. AIDS wasn't even like given a name until 1981. So the author was writing this before there was a name for AIDS. There certainly is a lot of illness within these stories, and so I think there's like a specter of illness and AIDS among the gay population of Brazil happening at this time, but it's never something that's overtly talked about within these stories. The stories are really atmospheric, very like rhythmic. They're the kind of stories where I didn't always know exactly what was going on, but the language was so beautiful. I was with it. I feel kind of like magical sometimes. There's lots of astrology brought up, and the first story is just dialogue. Like it's purely, let me see if I can pull it up, just dialogue between A and B, and A is claiming to be like, you're my friend, and trying to convince B that B is A's friend, and B is kind of like suspicious, like, what are you trying to say? That sets up the entire collection, I thought, to be about communication and about people trying to connect with one another and people trying to be and desperate to be seen by others. One of my favorite stories is called Beyond the Point, and I think it's one of the translator's favorite stories as well because I've seen her read from it in multiple venues. This is about a character who is walking a long way on a rainy night to take a bottle of cognac to the character's lover. The whole story is just this like relentless, like really long sentences, just tons of repetition of the same phrases over and over and over again. And it's like walking a long way in the rain because it's relentless and it's repetitive and it's such a beautiful story. And I watched an interview with the translator on YouTube where she described the author's work being like full of pain and hopelessness and dread, but then also filled with magic and beauty. And the way she described it was that Abreu likes to put glitter on his wounds. Like there's wounds, but they're just piled with glitter on top of them. And I thought that was exactly what this collection is. It's full of wounds and it's full of glitter. Okay, so now for the 2 books that I unfortunately haven't read quite yet, but am looking forward to. I started The Sleeping Car Porter by Suzette Meyer, and this is published by Coach House Books. And this is the story of Baxter. And Baxter, let's see, what decade does this take place in? It's 1929. So Baxter his job is he's a sleeping car porter, and he works on this train, and the train is going from Toronto to Winnipeg, I think, if I remember correctly, and it takes like several days to get there. Baxter's dream is to be a dentist. So Baxter is trying to save up money to, I think, apply to dental school. He has a very specific amount of money that he's trying to save up for. He's got like a certain amount of time that he still has to work as a sleeping car porter to save up that exact amount of money. But then also, as part of his job, there's like this system of, I want to say points. If you commit certain infractions in your job, you're like given like point, like if you get to a certain number of points is the wrong word, but like you'll be fired. Like if you do a certain number of things wrong. And so there are these ticking time bombs, kind of two ticking clocks. One is like earning the money towards dental school, and the other is like making too many mistakes to be fired, so you won't earn that enough money for dental school. He's on this train, and I haven't gotten to this part in the book. This is just from what I've gleaned from descriptions. There's a mudslide, and so this train is stranded, and the passengers aren't doing him any favors in helping him try to get to his dream goal of applying to dental school. The author, Ben Fountain, is one of the judges for the prize, and during this virtual event that I attended, he told the author, Suzette Meyer, that this was a perfect novel. Like he was just so effusive with his praise that it was like perfection to him. And Ben Fountain is the author of Billy Lynn's Long Halftime Walk, if you're familiar with that book. So great praise from an amazing author, and so I cannot wait to actually finish this one. And then we have A New Name by Jan Fosse, and this is translated by Damien Searles, and this is it's the 3rd book in Jan Fosse's Septology series, and it's Septology 6 and 7. I know folks have said that you can read these out of order, but that is like nails on a chalkboard to my brain. So I have actually started the 1st book and will read through the full Septology regardless. So I haven't actually started A New Name yet. This, I think, was just recently listed as a finalist for the National Book Award. This is about an aging painter and widower who lives alone on the coast of Norway. He has a doppelganger who has almost exactly his same life, that he kind of somehow has access to knowing about this other guy's life. And both of them are like grappling with all these existential questions about life and death. It's described as a major work of Scandinavian fiction. We'll see. If it's on the short list, then I'll have a like deadline to read it by the time the Republic of Consciousness Prize is announced. If not, I will have a leisurely time reading the Septology. So I am new to this whole shortlist prediction thing. So I could really imagine any one of these amazing books being on the short list. I could totally see Jan Fosse being on the short list, but I could also see it not being on the short list because there's been so much praise and obviously other prize finalists. So maybe they would want to recognize some other books, but who knows? I'm not going to put that on my list. Let's see, just give what the list is. Goodness. I would love to see Pollak's Arm on the short list, because if you have watched any of my other videos, you might be aware of my obsession with narrative techniques and narration, and the focus on unique ways of narrating stories that are chosen based on the content of the story. So the choices regarding the narrator and narration make sense for what the story is. And so that is why I loved this book so much. Blood Red, Gabriela Ponce. I just love this book. In my notes, I finished because I was taking notes, which is not something I always do. But yeah, the last thing I wrote was just, damn. The narrator I felt was really fresh and unique, and it was really intense. This exemplifies like the importance of small presses, because this book is so risky and so risque that I cannot picture many large corporate publishers publishing this amazing book. And like, I loved it so much. So there's obviously an audience for it, and it would be a shame if there wasn't a publisher out there that would publish it. And so that is the importance of small publishers who are willing to take a risk on risky writing. God's Children are Little Broken Things by Arinze Ifekandu, and I loved these characters so much, and I think this author is going places, honest to goodness. I think that these stories would appeal to a wide audience. A lot of these books, they might not be for everyone, based on the styles, but I see a lot of people loving this book. So I would love to see it get more publicity. New and Selected Stories by Cristina Rivera Garza. She's just like brilliant. I think I said in one of my other videos, like just the introduction, I was like, oh my goodness, this I've been looking forward to reading her work for a while, and yes, it did not disappoint, and I can't wait to reread these. And I also am really excited, and a lot of people are, this is like not news, by Dorothy, a publishing project. The publisher of this book is supposed to have amazing work, and so it would be really cool to see them highlighted with this prize. And then similarly, New Animal by Ella Baxter. I loved the novel, and even more than that, I think $2 Radio is the kind of publisher that I could see the prize judges really wanting to highlight, because they seem like at the top of their game, really fresh, provocative work. You can like pick up a book at the bookstore and read the synopsis, look at the kind of book packaging and say, yep, that sounds and looks like a $2 Radio book. I just think they're really cool. So it would be fun to see them on the short list. I have my husband here, not on camera. This is harder with you here. All right, so I have my husband here who has the email with the short list pulled up, and he's going to read the titles one by one, and I'm going to react live on camera to the short list of the Republic of Consciousness Prize. Ready, set, go.
Is this like a ranking, or is it just 5?
I don't know. I didn't open the email.
Okay. In order,
it's not a ranking. It's not a ranking.
Okay.
Okay.
First, Blood Red.
Ooh! Yes! I just finished this one today, and I told him how much I loved it. That is exciting. Ooh, this is fun. Okay.
Okay. I didn't know if you were going to do like a thing for each one.
No.
Okay.
Should I do a thing?
Well, you can do that later, I guess.
Okay.
Next. God's Children are Little Broken Things.
Oh my God! I predicted that one. My other favorite. Okay. Next. Sorry. Okay. That's exciting. Yes. Okay. Next.
A New Name.
Oh, I was on the fence about this one. Yep. Okay. All right. All right, so I guess I'm reading it. Whoa, okay. All right.
Next is Pollak's Arm.
My other favorite one. Oh, okay. That is exciting. Okay. Pollak's Arm. Okay. Good. Okay, last one. Okay. Ooh. All right. Oh, okay. I hope my sound is working, because this is really genuine. Like, this is really fun. Okay.
Ready for the last one?
Yes.
Okay. The Sleeping Car Play.
Whoa! Oh, Ben Fountain was so over the top in that event about this book that I should have probably guessed this one. Oh no, the 2 books I haven't read yet are on the list. Well, I guess that would have maybe changed my predictions if I had actually finished them. Interesting. Okay. Wow. Okay. My 3 very favorite books of the bunch pretty much made it to the short list. That's cool, right? Oh, that's awesome. Okay. Thank you. You didn't just make some of them up, did you?
I don't know any of these, so I couldn't have made them up.
Good point. Okay, so I have more work to do before the winner is announced. I think it's like, oh my God, it's in like 2 weeks. I think it's like March 28th or something like that is when the winner is announced. If any of these amazing books sounded at all appealing to you, I hope you will hit the like button, because that will hopefully spread these books across a little bit more across the internet and spread the word about this amazing prize and get these amazing books into the hands of more readers. Thank you so much. These books are amazing and they deserve to be read. Please read them. They're so good. My name is Sarah. I've already said that, I think. This is a very exciting day. Anyway, yeah, I hope you have a great day. Bye.